Examining the George Floyd case through a human rights lens underscores the failure of existing legal and institutional mechanisms to prevent police brutality and ensure accountability, necessitating a fundamental reevaluation of law enforcement practices and policies. This project will analyze police brutality and human rights violations in situations like George Floyd's. The Police Brutality Center defines police brutality as when police officers unlawfully use excessive force, often fueled by factors such as racial discrimination or outbursts of anger. The George Floyd case is a notable example of police brutality. On May 25, 2020, George Floyd was being arrested for suspected use of counterfeit money. Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes, leading to his death. The incident, captured on video, sparked global protests and highlighted issues of racial discrimination and misuse of power in law enforcement. So who is most likely to fall victim to police brutality? In the U.S., police brutality disproportionately affects marginalized groups such as Black Americans, Indigenous people, low-income individuals, LGBTQ people, and those with mental illnesses. The Washington Post database breaks down the stark racial disparities for people in the United States killed by police shootings since January 1, 2015. The statistics show the following. Police killed white people at a rate of 2.4 per million in population each year. Police killed Hispanic people at a rate of 2.7 per million in population each year. And police killed Black people at a rate of 6.1 per million in population each year. In other words, Black Americans are more than twice as likely to be killed by the police than white people. The murder of George Floyd exposed systemic racism within law enforcement, a concept sociologists refer to as institutional racism. The social control function of policing has been criticized for disproportionately targeting marginalized groups, particularly Black communities. Calls for reform include addressing the culture of exemption, where officers are rarely held accountable for wrongdoing, and enforcing tools such as independent oversight boards to guarantee transparency. Judicial systems. The judicial system is often seen as a system of structural inequality, where differences in sentencing and legal outcomes reflect broader patterns of racial inequalities. Sociologists highlight the concept of racial bias in the criminal justice system, where unspoken and clear prejudices impact decisions at every level, from arrest to sentencing. The lack of accountability for police officers who commit acts of violence reflects what some people call legal cynicism. Police brutality creates trauma within marginalized communities, particularly among Black families. This trauma can deteriorate the networks of trust and mutual support that bind communities together. Opportunities to address police brutality. Advocacy groups like Black Lives Matter mobilize ordinary citizens to challenge power structures and demand change. These movements use collective action to bring attention to issues of police brutality and systemic racism. Through protests, petitions, and campaigns, these groups act as change agents, pushing for reforms that address both immediate concerns and long-term systemic issues. Policy reform initiatives. Proposals such as reallocating police budgets to fund mental health services and education reflect the idea of resource redistribution, a strategy aimed at addressing the root causes of crime and inequality. Additionally, reforms like banning chokeholds and mandating de-escalation training aim to shift the normal culture of policing toward one that prioritizes community safety and human rights. Education serves as a tool for cultural learning, helping to challenge deeply ingrained stereotypes and biases. Training programs for law enforcement now emphasize implicit bias awareness, encouraging officers to recognize and reduce unconscious prejudices. Critical race theory helps us understand how racism is built into systems like law enforcement, and George Floyd's death is a clear example of this. CRT suggests that racism isn't just about individual prejudices, but is woven into the fabric of institutions. Critical race theory also talks about intersectionality, which means looking at how different aspects of a person's identity, like race and class, combine to affect their experiences. As a Black man from a working-class background, George Floyd faced multiple layers of discrimination. By using critical race theory, we see that George Floyd's murder is a part of a larger pattern of systemic racism in policing. Several articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are directly relevant to the issue of police brutality as they outline fundamental rights that are often violated in such cases. Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Police brutality undermines this principle by disproportionately targeting marginalized groups, denying them equality and dignity. Article 3. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Excessive use of force by law enforcement, as seen in cases like George Floyd's murder, violates the right to life and personal security. Article 5. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Police brutality often involves physical violence and dehumanizing actions that breach this article. Article 7. All are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection without discrimination. Racial disparities in policing highlight violations of this principle, as certain groups face unequal treatment under the law. These articles collectively emphasize the importance of protecting individuals from abuse, ensuring equality, and holding authorities accountable. All critical issues in addressing police brutality. Laws and policies. Use of force policies. Many jurisdictions have specific guidelines that dictate when and how police officers can use force. These policies often emphasize the principle of using the minimum amount of force necessary and require de-escalation techniques whenever possible. Body cameras. The implementation of body-worn cameras by police officers is a policy aimed at increasing transparency and accountability. These devices can provide objective evidence in cases of alleged misconduct. Civil rights laws. In the United States, for example, the Civil Rights Act and federal statutes like 42 U.S.C. 1983 allow individuals to sue law enforcement officers and agencies for violations of constitutional rights, including excessive force. Training and education. Police departments are increasingly focusing on training programs that cover topics such as implicit bias, cultural competency, and mental health crisis intervention to reduce incidents of brutality. Qualified immunity. In the U.S., the doctrine of qualified immunity protects government officials, including police officers, from liability unless they violated clearly established legal rights. This doctrine has been the subject of debate and calls for reform. Investigating change. BLM is a global movement advocating against systemic racism and police violence. It has successfully raised awareness and influenced policy changes at local and national levels, such as a reallocation of police funding to community services. Campaign Zero. This organization focuses on data-driven policy solutions to end police violence. Their comprehensive platform includes specific reforms like banning chokeholds, requiring de-escalation, and implementing independent investigations into police misconduct. Government initiatives. The George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, passed by the U.S. House of Representatives in 2021. This bill aims to address police misconduct through measures such as banning chokeholds, ending qualified immunity for law enforcement, and establishing a national registry of police misconduct. Community-oriented policing services, or the COPS program. A component of the U.S. Department of Justice, COPS provides resources for community policing efforts, emphasizing partnerships between law enforcement agencies and communities to reduce crime and improve public trust. Why should you care about police brutality? People should care about police brutality because it affects fundamental human rights, community trust in law enforcement, and the overall safety and well-being of society. Here are some reasons why you should care about police brutality. Police brutality often involves violations of individuals' rights to life, liberty, and security. Incidents of police brutality disproportionately affect marginalized communities, leading to mistrust and fear of law enforcement. This can hinder effective policing and community cooperation. Public safety. Trust between the police and the community is essential for public safety. When people fear the police, they may be less likely to report crimes or cooperate with investigations, which can increase crime rates. Economic costs. Settlements and legal costs associated with police misconduct cases can be significant, burdening taxpayers and diverting resources from other public services. Statistics. Police killed 1,365 people in 2024, the deadliest year for police violence on record, based on existing databases tracking these killings since 2013. These statistics highlight the prevalence and impact of police brutality, underscoring the need for systemic reforms to ensure accountability, protect human rights, and build trust between law enforcement and communities. Addressing these issues is crucial for creating a just and equitable society.